It seems to happen like clockwork. As soon as a warranty runs out, things break and they're no longer covered. When your car is in that situation, though, you could be staring down thousands of dollars in repair bills. CarShield begins where your warranty ends, with service plans that cover those expensive surprises. They pay your favorite mechanic or dealership directly, making the entire process fast and easy. Get a free quote by calling 800-416-6522 or visit carshield.com to get your free quote.
We begin this hour with the rise in COVID-19 vaccinations here in the U.S. Let's go to our chief White House correspondent, Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, this is another life and death moment in the pandemic. What's the administration saying tonight?
Well, they're making a concerted effort this week, Wolf, to try to get the messaging more clearly stated to Americans who were understandably confused by that new CDC guidance for fully vaccinated Americans last week. That guidance that said they needed to wear a mask indoors in certain places in the U.S. where you are seeing cases rising. And that is something the CDC director in a briefing tonight talked about. The cases going up, hospitalizations as well going up, as they are lamenting the fact that there are still 90 million Americans who are eligible to get vaccinated who still haven't made the choice to do so.
With the Delta variant fueling outbreaks nationwide, President Biden is hitting a key vaccine goal tonight, almost 1 month late.
I would say it's a significant step that we have hit 70%.
70% of adults in the U.S. have now received at least one shot, a milestone Biden hoped to reach by July 4th. The U.S. reported over 800,000 new shots were administered yesterday, making it the fifth straight day with over 700,000 shots in arms, still far from peak levels. Amid a renewed push to get more people vaccinated, the pandemic is once again consuming Biden's agenda.
We're not going back to the shutdowns of March of 2020. We're not going back to the economy shutting down. We've made too much progress.
After getting briefed by his COVID-19 team today, the president will give a speech on the pandemic tomorrow and meet with a top science advisor on Wednesday to prepare for future pandemics. With hospitalizations increasing, the CDC director is warning of how contagious the Delta variant can be.
If you get sick with the Delta variant, we estimate that you could infect about 5 other unvaccinated people, more than twice as many as the original strain.
Less than 1% of those who are fully vaccinated have experienced a breakthrough infection, according to an analysis by the Kaiser Family Foundation. Senator Lindsey Graham announcing he is one of them, adding, quote, "I am very glad I was vaccinated." Not everyone is taking the CDC's mask advice.
There will be no restrictions and no mandates in the state of Florida.
Today, New York Mayor Bill de Blasio urged vaccinated New Yorkers to wear masks inside, but stopped short of issuing a new mandate.
But we thought that was the right balance. We still want to respect the fact that vaccination does give you different opportunities and rights than unvaccinated people.
Right now, 5 states are accounting for nearly half of all new COVID-19 cases. Meanwhile, a federal freeze on evictions expired over the weekend, putting millions of tenants at risk as infections are spiking nationwide. The White House says a Supreme Court ruling has prevented them from extending it, but made one last appeal to the CDC yesterday, which was denied.
I think what you're seeing is a president who's just trying to do everything that he can in his power.
Democrats didn't have the votes to get an extension passed last week, but progressives are turning up the heat on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
We have to really just call a spade a spade. We cannot, in good faith, blame the Republican Party when House Democrats have a majority.
And Wolf, after Senator Lindsey Graham tested positive for coronavirus despite being fully vaccinated, we are now learning that he spent a portion of the weekend on Senator Joe Manchin's houseboat here in Washington. Not just Senator Graham and Senator Manchin, but there were several other senators on that boat as well. Of course, now several of their offices are putting out statements about them following CDC guidance, which now says if you are fully vaccinated and around someone who tests positive, you still need to get tested within 3 to 5 days of that contact. And Dr. Fauci told us earlier today that these instances of breakthrough cases are rare for fully vaccinated people, but clearly, Wolf, they're happening across the country and even here in Washington tonight. And
I thought it was significant that Senator Lindsey Graham said in his statement, I am very glad I was vaccinated because without vaccination, I am certain I would not feel as well as I do now. my symptoms would be far worse. Bottom line, he's recommending everyone go get vaccinated. Yeah. Caitlin, thank you very, very much. Now to New York City. As the first epicenter of the pandemic battles a new rise in COVID cases right now. Let's go to our national correspondent, Jason Carroll. He's in New York. Jason, the largest city in the country is breaking with some other big metro areas, stopping short, actually, of the new mask mandate. Yeah. What's the latest?
Yeah, well, stopping short, and a number of the mayor's critics are asking why stopping short of a mask mandate, given that the city is seeing an uptick in cases in the city. The mayor is urging people who are going inside restaurants, bars, clubs, grocery stores, whatever the case may be, public places, to wear masks inside, but again, not issuing a mandate. The mayor, when pressed on that issue, says a couple of things. Look, he says he's following the science and the data. He says that he's providing the same guidance that the CDC gave last week. But again, no mandate. And so some people are wondering, how is this going to affect businesses going forward? Well, already, Wolf, we've heard from Equinox, which put out a statement late this afternoon basically saying that going forward, all of their members must provide proof of a vaccination before entry. So that's going to be for all Equinoxes and Soul Cycles going forward. We also checked with the restaurant behind me, Cafeteria, very popular spot here in New York City. Asked the owners here how that their policy might be affected given what the mayor has now recommended.
I think it's a great approach. Ultimately, as we've all been saying, New York is a resilient city. I mean, I think it's important that everybody take part and do, whatever is needed to try to, eradicate as much as we can this virus. If it's just a short little step back and wearing a mask for a little bit longer indoors, or any part where there's a high level of amount of people, I think we should do it. I think it's important. We should try to do as much as we can to try to save our city and save our businesses.
It should also be noted that the mayor said that in terms of the city's perspective, everything that they're doing going forward is going to be, quote, vaccine-centric. We should also point out New York's governor also held a briefing today where he also encouraged all businesses going forward. He says, look, what they should try to do is adopt some sort of vaccine admission policy. Wolf?
All right, Jason, thank you very much. Jason Carroll in New York. Let's discuss all this and more with Dr. Tom Frieden, the former director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Dr. Frieden, thank you so much for joining us. Just about a month late, the U.S. now has hit the goal of 70% of adults receiving at least one dose of the coronavirus vaccine. This level of vaccination wasn't enough to stop the Delta variant from taking off, but will it be enough, do you believe, Dr. Frieden, to stop the next variant?
Well, it's clear that the virus is upping its game, and we need to up our game. Delta is doubly infectious. We have to double down on layers of protection. That means vaccination and masking. Wolf, you were just talking about Senator Lindsey Graham, who had symptoms. He was vaccinated. He exposed other people. Good example of why it makes sense to wear a mask when the virus is spreading widely, because those people could get sick and they could spread the infection to others. The vaccine is working. I think people need to understand breakthrough doesn't mean that the dam is broken. In fact, if you look at more than 160 million people vaccinated, less than 1 in 100,000 of those people have died from COVID. And those individuals who have had severe breakthrough infections, we need to understand more. It may be people with kidney transplants or other health problems that put them at higher risk. They may need a different approach to be protected more effectively. But our vaccines are working. Delta, however, is upping the bar, and we're going to need to vaccinate many more people and have layered protection, especially, Wolf, to keep our schools open. That is what has me most worried. Schools are opening now, and if we don't vaccinate, mask up, and have layered protection, the risk is that some won't open or some that open will close. And getting our kids learning in person is crucially important.
On Sunday, Dr. Frieden, we did see the 5th day in a row with more than 700,000 shots in arms here in the U.S. That's an increase, but is it enough to ease your concerns about vaccine hesitancy. About 90 million Americans still have not received one shot. 90 million who are eligible, I should say.
People. That's 90 million people who are avoidably susceptible to getting killed by COVID or getting long COVID and ill for weeks, months, or maybe even years. So no, it's not enough. We need to ramp up vaccination more. We need to mask up, especially where the virus is spreading widely. We can do this, but it does require that we up our game. The virus has changed and adapted. We need to change and adapt also.
I'm curious what you think about this third shot, this booster shot. We now see that the experts in Israel, the UK, Germany, they're taking steps to give people at risk, especially those over 60 with underlying health conditions who were fully vaccinated 5 or 6 months ago, a third shot. Should the U.S. be doing the same thing right now?
We don't have the data we need to make that decision. We need to know who is getting severe breakthrough infections. And if there is a group that looks like they need a third shot, for example, I think kidney transplant recipients, there's now pretty good data that they probably aren't well protected with 2 shots, and a third shot might help them. That's different, from a booster after 6 or 12 months if there's waning immunity. I don't think we've seen data to convince that that's necessary. But for some groups that have underlying conditions and aren't responding as well as nearly everyone else to the vaccine, such as people with a kidney transplant, that's a group that I expect we'll see some new recommendations on in the coming weeks.
We'll see what happens here in the U.S. in the coming weeks. Dr. Frieden, thanks as usual for joining us. Appreciate it very much. Just ahead, the devastating aftermath of January 6th as a third police officer who responded to the riot up on Capitol Hill dies by suicide. This comes as a Republican senator is now brazenly pouring fuel on a January 6th conspiracy theory involving the FBI. You're going to hear it for yourself. Stay with us. Tonight, the insurrection continues to take a devastating toll. A third police officer who confronted rioters on January 6th has died by suicide. Our justice correspondent, Jessica Schneider, is here with us in the Situation Room. Jessica, what are you learning about this police officer? It's such a sad development.
Just another difficult day for the police department here in Washington, D.C. It was Officer Gunther Hashida. He was a member of the emergency response team for the Special Operations Division. And in fact, the police department confirms that he was found in his home last Thursday. He did respond to the Capitol on January 6th, Wolf. He is the third officer now who has died by suicide after responding to the Capitol attack. Now, it's unclear at this point if Officer Hashida was facing any trauma from January 6th. But, a lot of the officers who did respond on January 6th, they've spoken out about the trauma of that day and the mental health toll that it has taken. In fact, Officer Michael Fanone, who has been very outspoken, he worked with Officer Hashida at the Metropolitan Police Department. He issued a lengthy statement. I'll read it for you. He says, "I worked with him for a number of years. Gunther was the most professional police officer that I ever worked with in my entire career. I have always felt that way. He was incredibly meticulous, detail-oriented, and dedicated to every aspect of the job. Incredibly reserved, quiet, and soft-spoken, but very positive. He was loved by everyone. There is no one in the law enforcement profession loved by everyone. Most are not loved by some. He literally was that guy who everyone loved." For me, the takeaway is that so much more needs to be done to normalize the conversation around mental health, not just in our profession. We need to take away the stigma of talking about these issues. Grappling with mental health issues should not be deemed a weakness. If anything, it's a strength. So a lot of people talking about the mental health aspect of this and how it does need to be addressed. The Metropolitan Police Department, they issued a statement saying that the department is grieving. Officer Hashida had been with the department, Wolf, since 2003.
Yeah, our deepest condolences to his family and his friends. May he rest in peace and may his memory be a blessing, as we always say. Amidst all of this, as you know, Jessica, some Republicans are actually continuing to downplay what happened on January 6th on Capitol Hill, and some are even fueling these conspiracy theories out there. The Washington Post, as you know, has obtained video of Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin throwing out some new idea involving the FBI, what it knew, didn't know about January 6th. What about that?
Yeah, this is video from just this past weekend that was uncovered by the Washington Post. And in it, Senator Ron Johnson is suggesting that the FBI had more knowledge and details about the January 6th Capitol attack than they actually had. Now, Senator Johnson has floated these wild conspiracy theories repeatedly, but this one really takes it a step farther. And in this clip, he references the kidnapping plot against Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and the fact that some of the defendants in that case are saying that the FBI entrapped them by stoking their anger. And then Senator Johnson in this clip compares it to what happened on January 6th. Here he is.
By the way, and I don't see it, but are you watching what's happening in Michigan? Are you watching? Okay, you're former CIA. Yes. Okay, so you think that the FBI had fully infiltrated the militias in Michigan? I didn't know squat about what's happening at January 6th and what's happening to these groups. There is way more people. There is way more to the story.
And to be clear here, Wolf, despite what Senator Johnson says, there is no credible evidence that the FBI had any detailed evidence about exactly what would unfold at the Capitol. And there is no allegation that the FBI even played any role in this attack. And really, the Senate report here, it did pin some blame on the FBI for not taking those online messages that suggested there would be violence at the Capitol seriously. But of course, that is a far cry from the allegations, the false allegations that Senator Johnson is making in this video.
Yeah, good point, Jessica. Thank you very much, Jessica Schneider, reporting. Let's get some more on this. Former Washington, D.C. Police Chief Charles Ramsey is joining us. Former CIA counterterrorism official Phil Mudd is with us as well. Phil, at one point in your career, you were actually sent over to work over at the FBI. What goes through your mind hearing this latest statement from Republican Senator Ron Johnson?
Boy, we used to be in a place where the Democrats attacked law enforcement in the military and were attacked by the Republicans for doing that, including after the Vietnam War. Now we're in a place where routinely, after January 6th, Republicans attack law enforcement and vilify the people who are protecting the Congress. Let me just give you one fact from an intelligence officer. There is a small group of people in Michigan, one state, a small group of people conspiring to attack the governor in a violent attack. That's obviously a crime. In Washington, D.C. on January 6th and before January 6th, there were thousands of people converging to hear the president speak at a political rally. And you're telling me the intelligence about a small group is the same as the intelligence you might acquire about a political rally for a U.S. politician? You got to be kidding me. Ignorance is bliss. He doesn't know what he's talking about, Wolf.
Chief Ramsey, all this comes, as we've learned very sadly, of this suicide of this police officer, Gunther Hashida. You heard that emotional tribute from police officer Michael Fanone. How hard is it to hear that yet another officer has taken his own life since responding to the January 6th attack?
Well, first, Wolf, let me offer my condolences to that officer's family and also to the men and women of MPD. It's tough to lose an officer under any circumstances. I think Officer Fanone really hit the nail on the head when he talked about mental health. A lot of people don't realize that, police officers take their own lives at a much higher rate than just about any other profession. And yet, our ability to give them the kind of mental health support and services that they need is still lacking in many jurisdictions. I'm not saying that's the case in Washington, but it is the case in many jurisdictions where, because of the stigma associated with mental health, officers are reluctant to come forward. They suck it up and keep moving on. But, these things take their toll over time. And unfortunately, this officer, who was assigned to ERT in Special Operations Division, which is one of the units assigned to help protect the president, vice president, visiting dignitaries and the like. And also, as my understanding, he suffered a tragic loss of his 15-year-old son a few years ago. All these things combined can lead to tragic outcomes.
We don't know, Phil, why Officer Hashida took his life, but clearly these police officers have dealt with enormous trauma, both from the January 6th attack and the aftermath, all these months since then, haven't they?
They have. I think we've forgotten, as Chief Ramsey said, that this isn't about politics, it's about mental health. We read about what officers deal with. That is somebody murdered, going to the house of a family who's lost a kid to drunken driving, going to see child abuse, watching domestic abuse. They deal with this every day, and then you have to go into a situation where mental health is not only ignored, in this case, as we saw, and partly in the response to the testimony on Capitol Hill, it's mocked. We have an Olympic athlete who separates herself from the games and is applauded, as she should be, for being honest about mental health. In this case, we have officers who respond to an attack and they're mocked. They're mocked. And then we get this. You draw the conclusion, Wolf. I've drawn my own.
What's your message, Chief Ramsey, to those police officers who are still struggling right now?
Well, seek help, but I think it's really incumbent upon police departments and leadership to make this just a routine, almost like a physical, a mental health checkup every year, every other year. It removed the stigma. When we went through a period of time during my time as commissioner, we had 8 officers killed in the line of duty within an eight-year period. 5 of them died within 9 months. I mean, we had to partner with the University of Pennsylvania Behavioral Health in order to provide the kind of counseling and services that officers needed. I needed it myself and actually went through counseling along with my command staff. You have to take these steps in order to show officers it's okay to not be okay. And we really do need to emphasize that to make sure that they have the right balance and can perform their duties and live a long, healthy life.
Well said indeed. Chief Ramsey, thank you. Phil Mudd, thanks to you as well. Coming up, the U.S. Senate is moving toward a vote on the newly finalized infrastructure bill. I'll ask the Senate Budget Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders about its chances and the pushback among progressives. Stay with us. Tonight, the U.S. Senate is bracing for a final battle over a massive bipartisan infrastructure bill. A floor vote could happen within days after weeks of intense negotiations. Let's go to our congressional correspondent, Jessica Dean. Jessica, so what are the chances this bill can get passed?
Well, Wolf, in the Senate, things are looking pretty good. We're seeing things progress, albeit pretty slowly. Of course, they worked all throughout the weekend to get that text finalized. And just here in the last few minutes, we did see the first bipartisan amendment for this bill pass. So what we're looking at right now is a lot of legislating. We're going to see various amendments coming to the floor. They have to have unanimous consent to be brought to the floor. So there's a lot of behind the scenes negotiating over which amendments will be brought forth and how they will be voted on, that sort of thing. We're going to see that play out, at least for the next day or so as they make their way through this. Again, this is now a question of timing, how quickly this can wrap up. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has said he wants to see it done by the end of the week. It remains to be seen if they can move that quickly. Again, this is an over $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill, taking a peek at kind of what's inside of it and top lines. Broadband, $65 billion. Power infrastructure, $73 billion. Bridges and roads getting $110 billion. Trains, $66 billion. Clean water, $55 billion. So again, a lot of this hard infrastructure, Wolf, that's what's in this bill. And it's looking good, like I said, on the Senate side. The question is, what will happen in the House? A lot of House progressives have said they want to see a reconciliation bill, which would have a lot of Democratic priorities in it, that gets put forth before they're willing to vote on this. That's where some of these questions will lead us to. Wolf?
Important issues indeed. All right, Jessica, thank you very much. Let's discuss this and more with the Senate Budget Committee Chairman, Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders, thanks as usual for joining us. As you know, the Senate is starting to consider various amendments to this $1 trillion plus infrastructure bill, but you only have a handful of days before the Senate recess. So how do you get this done?
By working very hard and working long hours. My hope and expectation is that this hard infrastructure bipartisan bill will get done by the end of the week, and then we will immediately turn to what we call the reconciliation bill, a bill which I think will have an extraordinarily positive impact on working families, and that will deal with the issues of extending the child tax credit, that $300 a month check for working families for their kids, which has cut childhood poverty in America by 61%, will reform in a very comprehensive way child care. We're going to expand Medicare to cover dental care, eyeglasses, hearing aids. We're going to finally get the United States to have paid family and medical leave. We're going to put a whole lot of money into affordable housing. And of course, in the midst of this horrible climate crisis that we face, we're going to begin the process of transforming our energy system away from fossil fuels. And when we do all of those things, Wolf, we're going to create millions of good-paying jobs.
You say, Senator, there could be no infrastructure bill, and that's a $1 trillion plus bill, without a reconciliation bill. That's another $3.5 trillion. But can moderate Democrats trust progressives to deliver the votes for infrastructure? And can you trust the moderates to back that $3.5 trillion deal that you want? This is really complicated.
It is. It is extremely complicated, and we look forward to the White House playing an active role in terms of making sure that we have the votes that we need to pass reconciliation. Unlike, obviously, the bipartisan bill, the reconciliation bill, which is really transformative. It begins to address the reality that for decades, Congress has paid a whole lot of attention to the rich and the powerful and campaign contributors and ignored the needs of the working class in this country. So, having said that and demanding that the wealthy start paying their fair share of taxes, we're not going to get any Republican support. So we have 0 Democratic votes to spare. But at the end of the day, the House and the Senate are going to have to come together to do something which is overwhelmingly popular among working families. People are sick and tired of seeing the rich get richer and everybody else struggling. They want action, and we're going to give them what I think is long overdue.
Are you worried, Senator, that the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will bow to pressure from moderate Democrats to decouple the infrastructure deal from the $3.5 trillion spending package?
Well, Speaker Pelosi, I think, has been very strong, and what she understands it is that it is imperative that we pass both, that we cannot go forward with just the bipartisan bill. Look, to be very honest with you, Wolf, physically, I'm a former mayor, so I know a little bit about roads and sidewalks and bridges and all that stuff. It is terribly important. We have an enormous amount of work to be done in that area. But human infrastructure, the needs of working families and our children and our elderly, that's actually more important. So both of these bills have got to go forward together. And when we do that, we will create many, many good-paying jobs. And one of the things I'm really excited about is we go forward in transforming our energy system and trying to reverse climate change. We're going to create a civilian climate corps, which will provide hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs for young people and give them the opportunity to lead the effort in trying to save this planet. So there's just a lot that we have to do. Now is the time to do it. And I will tell you that you got a lot of special interests, the drug companies who are going to lower the cost of prescription drugs, the healthcare industry, the fossil fuel industry, you name the big money interests that are going to try to defeat us. But it's important that we hang in there together and that we pass this bill.
We'll see what happens this week and in the coming weeks. Senator Sanders, thanks as usual for joining us.
Thank you.
Just ahead, it's reopening day for many schools in the COVID hotspot of Georgia. I'll ask the Atlanta Mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, there she is, how she's planning to keep students and teachers safe. It's back to school time in the COVID hotspot of Georgia. Let's talk about the challenges for the students, the teachers, the officials, as the Delta variant hammers areas with low vaccination rates. Joining us now, the mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us. As you know better than I do, some of the Atlanta area schools, they're back in session. Some of them actually today, others later in the week, some next week. How do you plan to keep kids, teachers, and staff safe this school year as this coronavirus transmission remains high and so many students are actually too young to be vaccinated?
Well, thank you for having me, Wolf. So let me be clear. I don't have purview over our schools as the mayor. We are a separate entity, but with the leadership of our superintendent in Atlanta, thankfully, there will be a mask requirement for our kids. I have also signed an executive order requiring a mask mandate in the city of Atlanta. Atlanta and the state of Georgia still has some of the lowest vaccination rates in the country. In Georgia, we're about 46% fully vaccinated. City of Atlanta is a little better at about 49%. And the CDC has designated us as an area of high transmission. So it's important that we have a mask mandate in our city. And thankfully, we are on one accord with our school superintendent, who's also required a mask mandate in Atlanta public schools.
Yeah, I want to show our viewers that map of the vast majority of Georgia, including your city of Atlanta, in bright red, indicating a high level of community transmission. Yet your governor, Brian Kemp, says he will not issue any mask mandates or lockdowns. I know you're requiring masks in Atlanta, but just how difficult is it to change the course of this pandemic where the message at the state level contradicts your message?
Well, it's the reason that we are so low on vaccinations and transmission is still so high. This is not a political issue. It's not a partisan issue. We are looking at data and metrics, and that's what our decision making is based upon. And so not only is the governor not requiring a mask mandate, he's doubling down on his position that somehow there's something wrong with our mask mandate in the city of Atlanta. And this is nothing new. I've been in battle with his governor before. If you recall, he filed a lawsuit against the city of Atlanta and me personally when I last instituted a mask mandate. It's my hope that we won't go down that path again. And I would just simply ask that he look at the science. This is about keeping people alive. I have 4 children, 2 of whom are not vaccine eligible, 1 who has severe asthma. So this is of grave concern, not just for people with underlying health conditions, but our children who are going back to school. And even in the metro area, there's some school systems that are making masks optional, but it's still a concern for parents and teachers throughout the state.
It's such a serious problem, this Delta variant. And Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, good luck to you. Good luck to everyone in Atlanta right now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up, calls are growing right now for the House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to resign. The off-color comments he made that are causing outrage up on Capitol Hill. That's coming up. Some Capitol Hill lawmakers are now calling for the House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to resign after an off-color remark he made should he become the Speaker of the House.
I want you to watch Nancy Pelosi hand me that gavel. It'll be hard not to hit her with it, but I will bang it down.
Let's discuss with CNN political commentators Van Jones and Mia Love. They're both joining us right now. Mia, as a former Republican Congresswoman, does it bother you to see the GOP leader of the House making jokes like this, rallying the party around attacks on the House Speaker, especially when she was actually threatened back on January 6th?
Well, of course it does. I think anytime anybody makes any threat of another member of Congress or anybody, it's definitely alarming. I honestly believe that those two, there's a genuine dislike. Nancy Pelosi called Kevin McCarthy a moron. Everybody is just... They need to stop acting like high schoolers and really just start acting like legislators. There are some people that really need their leadership right now. And for these leaders to go out and just say what they're saying is, I think, childish and uncalled for and inappropriate.
This relationship, Van, between Pelosi and McCarthy seems to be at an all-time low. I've covered Congress for a long time. As Mia points out, Pelosi publicly called McCarthy a moron because of his position on masks and COVID just last week. How badly, Van, have things deteriorated?
Well, quite badly, and it's really a shame. I mean, Kevin McCarthy knows better. I mean, those of us who know him when he's not playing to the cheap seats and trying to court Donald Trump and doing all this weird stuff he's doing because he's just so interested in becoming Speaker of the House. Even if he destroys the House in the process, it destroys faith in democratic process in the process. Look, I think this is very, very bad because you look at what's not getting done. You look at the fact that all these evictions are going to happen now because they weren't able to get stuff done. This kind of playing to the cheap seats and that kind of stuff, it has real consequences for real people when governing is not happening.
This comes, Mia, as we've just learned of a third suicide of a police officer who responded to the January 6th attack up on Capitol Hill. We don't know why this police officer took his life, but is this all a reminder that there are obviously real world implications to all the political rhetoric that's thrown around out there.
Hands down, absolutely. Anytime a person who has a platform says something, they have to be careful because there are implications. Wolf, I knew these people, and there are specific police officers right now, Capitol Hill police officers, that I have no doubt would have given their lives to make sure that I was safe. These are people with children, with wives, with one wife, with children, and they really just want to do their job. And we have to understand that there's a human aspect behind this. It's just really upsetting to me that members of Congress don't really take that into consideration. They need to start acting like adults and understand that there's so much more that they need to do.
What's your take, Van?
I think heroes should be embraced, and I think they should be celebrated. I think they should be hugged and held and healed. When you go through something like that and half the country doesn't come to your side, I mean, look at our people who are veterans, who lose their way. These are people who had one of the worst experiences of their lives, broadcast on global television, and to have half the country possibly saying what you went through, you didn't go through, it doesn't help with the healing. So it's really sad.
Very sad indeed. All right, Van, Mia. Guys, thank you very much. We'll have more news just ahead, including gymnast Simone Biles set to return to the Olympics for one final Olympic event. What Team USA is saying, that's next. Gymnast Simone Biles will compete in the Olympics balance beam final in just a few hours. This after Biles withdrew from the competition last week, citing mental health concerns. CNN sports analyst Christine Brennan is joining us right now live from Tokyo. So what are you learning, Christine, about why Biles now feels she can safely return to the competition for this balance beam final?
Wolf, this is going to be a huge event and a huge moment at these Olympic Games, the biggest by far. And she feels comfortable in the air, or more comfortable anyway. She believes that the twisties, getting lost in the air, she believes that she has conquered that, hopes that continues to be the case. The balance beam, though, Wolf, it's 4 inches up there, several feet in the air. For mere mortals like you and I mean, it's almost impossible just to stand on it. And she will be flipping and doing all those routines and turning around on it. And there's great risk, but she thinks she's got it. She thinks she's ready. And what a lovely punctuation mark, this exclamation point at the end of her Olympics, if she is able to pull this off. And obviously the nation, the world probably will be holding its breath.
I'll be among them. I'll be wanting to watch every second of that. One of the most unexpected stories, Christine, of these Olympic Games is how Biles' decision to step back actually opened up doors for her fellow USA gymnasts to bring home medals of their own. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, Suni Lee, of course, was the all-around champion, the 5th straight American woman to win that prestigious title. Wolf, the most significant in gymnastics, the women's all-around competition. Mary Lou Retton won it back in 1984. And so it shows the depth of the Americans, that Simone Biles could be out of the competition, and her teammate Sunisa Lee comes right in and wins it. And then Jade Carey won in the floor exercise last night, early morning in the U.S., and a great performance, a gold medal as well. So it shows the depth of the U.S. women's gymnastics team. It shows just how strong they are. And of course, their biggest cheerleader in the stands, Simone Biles, now will finally leave the stands, come back to the floor literally a week after she left. And of course, the drama all began as we started to hear her story about her struggles with mental health.
And Christine, what are you to be looking for in the next week as these games continue and finally wrap up?
Wolf, the issue of protesting, athletes protesting. Raven Saunders won the shot put silver medal and then did a protest on the medal stand. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee is defending her, saying that was okay to do that. The International Olympic Committee is going to answer probably the next hour or two. Officially, it's against their rules to do anything on the medal podium, even though she crossed her arms and asked for oppressed people, she said. That was Saunders from the United States. So we'll see who wins that battle, the IOC or the U.S.
We shall see. Christine Brennan in Tokyo, thank you very, very much. And to our viewers, thanks very much for watching. Erin Burnett out front starts right now.
It seems to happen like clockwork. As soon as a warranty runs out, things break and they're no longer covered. When your car is in that situation, though, you could be staring down thousands of dollars in repair bills. CarShield begins where your warranty ends with service plans that cover those expensive surprises. They pay your favorite mechanic or dealership directly, making the entire process fast and easy. Get a free quote by calling 800-416-6522 or visit carshield.com to get your free quote.